When the 2000s rolled around, the handheld scene was in a familiar place. Nintendo was the unstoppable king of the portable market, and all that tried to oppose them, like the Neo Geo Pocket Color or the Nokia N-Gage, were sure to crumble beneath them. It seemed like the Big N was gonna sit pretty with their Game Boy line forever, as they released the new Advanced Game Boy back in 2001. But 3 years later, the Big N decided to reinvent the wheel with a touch of a dual-screen stylus. It's the Nintendo DS. I will say I didn't have the original model when it was new. I had another model that I will talk about another time, but I can only imagine the shockwaves in the industry this thing made while being introduced in Reggie's hand. Gonna miss that man. The Nintendo DS was released on November 21st, 2004, as totally not the successor to the Game Boy line, so said Nintendo, but we clearly knew this was going to take over as the new standard in handheld gaming. But maybe they had something else in mind. I mean, this clamshell design looks awfully familiar to the SP, not to mention the overall dual screen design wasn't an original idea either, as the Game & Watch multi-screens did it first 22 years before. Were they looking for a combination of their two best lines, making this the Watchin' Boy? Nah, they knew they were onto something new. And the new innovation was not only having one LCD screen, but a second one that was also touchable. Now, believe it or not, Nintendo weren't the first to come out with a portable system with a touchscreen. The Tiger Gamecom has that honor, surprisingly, but Nintendo certainly perfected it and made sure everybody knew that touching was good, especially in their commercials. This was released during a time when Nintendo was being weird or full-on erotic with their advertising. If you don't believe me, look up those DS commercials from 2004 to 2006. That seductive voice and the static should get you going for dual screen action. Around the screens, you have your necessities like the D-pad, power, ABXY layout, and the start and select buttons. All are laid out and aesthetically pleasing. Although I have some trouble getting used to the D-pad, it's still a good setup. Below the bottom screen and the mini logo are the power and charge lights, as well as another new feature for Nintendo, a built-in microphone. Now, they have experimented with microphones before on their consoles to varying success, let's say, but this mic definitely fitted in as it not only worked, but worked well when you had to blow some air into it or talk to some of your pets. I heard this could have been used for multiplayer chat, but I never even saw that happen. Then again, I never used Nintendo Wi-Fi that much. May that rest in peace. You probably already saw the speakers next to the top screen, so we're going to move right along to the top where we find some important features, like the L and R buttons, the AC adapter connector that looks like the SP's to a T, and the cartridge slot. The Nintendo DS, of course, would have to play its own games. You have two screens to use and would need new software to use them, but there may be some who aren't all about that dual screen life and prefer just the one singular screen over two, but Nintendo has you covered. We'll get to that in a bit. There is also this stylus hole for you to store a DS stylus while not playing, as you would be using this while you are playing, because you wouldn't want to dirty up the touchscreen with your disgusting fingers now, would you? My DS came with this wrist strap already attached. If you see random holes that probably don't serve a purpose, this is what they'd be used for. On the bottom is the volume adjuster, a headphone jack, and another cartridge slot, this time for Game Boy Advance games. This is how they got those who were a bit hesitant to buy into the new dual screen system by offering backwards compatibility with GBA titles. So you'd be able to play something new with the classics to boot. But unfortunately, like the Game Boy Micro, it isn't able to play the older Game Boy or Game Boy Color games. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Speaking of back, that is where we find ourselves on the DS, with not a whole lot to show other than some logos, a barcode with other information thrown in above it, along with some indents and screws. The one notable thing would have to be the battery compartment. Of course it has its own charge and can last up to maybe 10 hours ideally, but the thought of the lithium-ion battery being replaceable by hand is not so common with other models, so this part acted more like a smartphone part, but nowadays changing the batteries out by hand is getting more and more phased out with handhelds, as well as phones. Anyway, I see the cartridge slots are being pointed out here as well, so let's just pop in some software and get to playing. Like I said earlier, the DS not only has its own library, but it's also backwards compatible with Game Boy Advance games. So while you could continue to enjoy the Mario Advance series, Metroid Fusion, and older Pokemon titles, you could enjoy some new games like Mario 64 DS, Nintendogs, and the newer Pokemon games that were sure to come. There were so many titles that you could potentially play. Of course, the GBA titles wouldn't have touchscreen capabilities, but hey, it was a genius move to get old and younger fans in to the new dual screen system. It took me a while to realize that DS was short for something. I was young and dumb and inexperienced gaming-wise. But as I have grown, so has the original DS. Its innovative dual-screen design has continued to live on as this video goes up, even after the original model was discontinued in 2013. Its semi-successor, the 3DS, is still hanging in there, but it's more than likely to be phased out in only a matter of time as the Switch craze continues growing strong. But if you so happen to find an original DS for a good deal, I'd say pick it up. It's not only a piece of handheld history, but one you don't find as often in the wild like other models. And what could be better than playing two different game types on a dual touch screen? By doing it on the go, of course, it's the Nintendo DS. There was a time before Nintendo took over and thrived in the handheld market. Lots, and I mean lots, of companies tried their hand on what was really an untapped scene in gaming. Plenty of unique portable systems came out of the 70s and 80s, and on the next episode we'll be having a look at one of those where a lesser-known Japanese company wanted to take us across the galaxy for a second time. If you think I missed anything, please leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others could get knowledge out of this, share this video. And if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, nostalgia is calling.